Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we're stepping into a world where shelter isn't just four walls and a thermostat. It's a living conversation between human ingenuity and the raw, unforgiving cold of the Great Plains. Picture this. You're standing on frozen ground beneath a January sky so clear the stars feel close enough to touch. And behind you rises a conical structure of buffalo hide and lodgepole pine. The temperature outside has plummeted to 20 below zero, and the wind cuts across the prairie like a blade. Inside that teepee, you're about to discover warmth, safety, and one of humanity's most elegant solutions to survival. Good thing this isn't your life, because out here, mistakes don't just make you uncomfortable, they can end you before morning. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Drop your location and local time in the comments below. Are you tucked in somewhere warm? Or are you braving your own kind of cold tonight? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pull back the entrance flap, heavy buffalo hide stiff with frost, and step into darkness that smells of wood smoke, tanned leather, and dried prairie grass. Your eyes adjust slowly. Above you, a thin column of smoke spirals upward through the crown of the teepee, backlit by embers below. And beyond that opening, you glimpse stars wheeling in their ancient patterns. The cold follows you inside for just a moment, a draft that swirls around your ankles. But then the flap falls closed behind you, and something remarkable happens. The temperature shifts. Not dramatically, this isn't a furnace, but enough that you feel your shoulders drop, your breath come easier. You're standing inside what might be the most thermally intelligent portable shelter ever devised by human hands. Let your eyes travel upward first. The teepee rises 15, maybe 18 feet above you, its walls leaning inward at that perfect angle, not too steep, not too shallow, that the Lakota and Cheyenne and Blackfoot peoples refined over centuries of trial, error, and intimate attention to how wind moves across open land. Those lodgepole pines, harvested from mountain forests and carried across vast distances, form a skeleton that flexes rather than breaks when wind slams against the hide. And that hide itself, 10 to 20 buffalo skins, scraped and smoked and stitched with sinew, isn't just a barrier. It breathes. Microscopic spaces between fibers allow moisture from your breath, from the fire, from your body, to escape outward, while still blocking the worst of the wind. Historians still argue about exactly how many buffalo were needed for an average family teepee, but most agree that a sturdy winter lodge required the hides of at least a dozen animals, representing months of communal labor. Now look lower, and here's where the real genius reveals itself. Running along the interior wall, about 6 feet up from the ground, hangs a second layer, a liner, sometimes called an ozan or dew cloth, made from lighter hide or even trade canvas in later years. This liner doesn't touch the outer wall. Instead, it hangs from the lodge poles, leaving a gap of several inches between itself and that buffalo hide exterior. You're looking at a double wall system that creates an insulating air pocket, the same principle that modern winter jackets use, though the Plains peoples understood it long before any textile engineer gave it a technical name. That trapped air slows the transfer of heat from inside to outside, and just as importantly, it catches condensation before it can drip down onto you while you sleep. Touch the liner now. Go ahead, run your fingers along it. Feel how it's angled inward at the bottom, directing any drafts that do sneak beneath the teepee's edge, upward and away from where you'll be sleeping. Fresh air still enters. It has to, or the fire would consume all the oxygen and you'd wake up dead. But instead of blasting across the floor where people rest, it rises along that gap between liner and outer wall, feeding the flames, then exits through the smoke hole at the top. The whole structure functions as a chimney, pulling air in low and pushing it out high. And the people who engineered this system did so without ever writing down a single equation. Here's something that'll make you appreciate your central heating. In the coldest months, families would stuff dried grass, buffalo grass if they could get it, or whatever prairie vegetation they'd harvested in autumn, into that gap between the liner and outer wall. The liner suddenly becomes a thick, insulated barrier, and that ghost liner nickname. It earned that name not just from its pale color, but from a practical security feature. With grass packed behind it, firelight couldn't cast shadows of the people inside onto the outer wall, making it harder for enemies or predators to know exactly where occupants were positioned. Function and defense, woven into the same elegant solution. The fire pit sits at the center. You probably noticed it immediately, a shallow depression ringed with stones, and right now it's burning what looks like chunks of dried, well, let's be honest, buffalo dung. Chips, the Plains peoples called them. And before you wrinkle your nose, understand this. On a landscape where trees are scarce, buffalo chips were the most reliable fuel source available. They burn slow and steady, producing less smoke than wood and maintaining heat for hours. The children's job often was gathering these chips in late summer and autumn, stacking them near the winter camp. A family might collect hundreds of pounds, and that collection meant the difference between warmth and hypothermia when blizzards locked the world down for days. But the fire isn't the only heat source. Look there, near the back wall. Several rounded stones, each about the size of your fist, sitting just at the edge of the fire pit. Those were heated in the flames earlier, and now they're radiating warmth into the space, acting as thermal batteries that continue releasing heat long after the flames die down to embers. Some families would heat stones until they glowed, then carefully move them to strategic positions around the sleeping area. Pour a little water on them, and they'd hiss and steam, adding moisture to air that winter's cold would otherwise render bone dry. Your lips won't crack, your throat won't ache, and your skin won't feel like old leather by morning. All because someone understood that comfort isn't just about temperature. The teepee's placement matters just as much as its construction. This particular lodge sits in a slight depression, backed up against a low rise where cottonwoods cluster along a frozen creek. The entrance, always facing east to greet the morning sun, is sheltered from the prevailing western winds that scream across the plains in winter. Historians still debate exactly how much meteorological knowledge went into site selection, but archaeological evidence of winter camp locations shows consistent patterns. Low ground to avoid wind, proximity to water sources, southern exposures when possible, natural windbreaks. The people who built this weren't just setting up a tent. They were reading the land like a book, finding the chapters that told them where warmth might gather and cold might be deflected. Your bed, if we can call it that, is a platform of bent willow branches laced with rawhide, raised several inches off the ground. Beneath it, more dried grass provides insulation from the earth's cold. Above it, you'll find buffalo robes, thick winter hides with the fur still on, layered 2 or 3 deep. The bottom robe has its fur facing down, trapping warm air against your body. The middle robe, fur facing up, creates another insulating layer. And the top robe? Fur down again, so you're sleeping in a cocoon of alternating air pockets and animal warmth. On the coldest nights, people slept in their clothing, layers of hide and fur, and often family members slept close together, sharing body heat the way wolves do in their dens. There's a quietness to this space that surprises you. Outside, the wind moans across the frozen prairie, but inside, the teepee's aerodynamic shape deflects those gusts upward and around. The fire crackles softly. Somewhere, a child murmurs in sleep. The smoke rises in its thin, steady column, and you realize you're watching a system that requires constant, subtle attention, adjusting the smoke flaps at the crown to account for shifting winds, feeding the fire just enough to maintain heat without creating smoke that would drive everyone outside, monitoring the entrance to ensure the flap stays sealed. This isn't passive shelter. It's an active relationship between people and structure, a dance of maintenance and awareness that modern thermostats have made us forget entirely. One more detail before you settle in. That liner? It's decorated, painted with geometric patterns in earth pigments, scenes of hunts or spiritual visions, symbols that identify this lodge's family and their place in the band's social structure. Beauty and function, art and engineering, all occupying the same buffalo hide canvas. Some anthropologists argue that the tipi represents one of the clearest examples of form following function in indigenous architecture. But others counter that the decorative elements were just as essential, that marking your shelter with identity and meaning was itself a survival strategy, a way of maintaining cultural cohesion when the physical world pressed down with killing force.
You lie back on those buffalo robes now, pulling the top layer up to your chin. The fire has burned down to glowing coals, just enough light to see the smoke still rising, still finding its way to the stars. The temperature inside hovers somewhere around 50 degrees. Not warm by modern standards, but so much warmer than the -20 wasteland outside that it feels like mercy. Your breath no longer fogs. Your fingers and toes, which were going numb during your walk here, begin to tingle as circulation returns. And somewhere in your modern mind, a question forms. How did they do this? How did people survive out here, generation after generation, with nothing but animal hides, wooden poles, fire, and accumulated knowledge passed down through winter stories? The answer is all around you. In the angle of those poles, in the gap between liner and wall, in the placement of this lodge against the hillside, in the rhythm of fire tending that someone will maintain through the night, in the communal effort that brought those buffalo hides into being, the hunting and processing and sewing that turned animals into shelter. This isn't just a tent. It's a library of survival, written in smoke and sinew. And you're lying in the middle of its warmest chapter, learning without words that humans have always been brilliant at finding ways to hold back the dark and the cold. At least for one more night. The fire has gone quiet now, just a bed of embers breathing their gentle orange glow into the darkness above. You can barely see the smoke anymore, just sense its movement, a soft rising like breath leaving the teepee's body. Outside, the wind has eased. The stars through that smoke hole look impossibly bright, impossibly far, and impossibly close all at once. Your body has settled into the buffalo robes, and the warmth they hold feels earned, precious. The kind of warmth that comes not from a dial turned on a wall, but from attention, from care, from centuries of people paying attention to how cold moves and how warmth can be kept. This is where we'll leave you tonight, wrapped in hide and knowledge, surrounded by the quiet engineering of survival. The people who perfected these lodges understood something we're still learning, that comfort isn't about conquering nature, but about finding your place within its patterns. They listened to wind and watched fire and learned the language of cold. And they built shelters that spoke that language back. Let yourself drift now. Let the rhythm of those embers, the last whisper of smoke rising toward the stars, carry you somewhere soft. You're safe here, in this lodge that breathes and holds and remembers. The cold is outside, where it belongs. And morning, with its eastern light warming the hide,
with its promise of another day held close against the winter. Morning will come soon enough. Rest now. The teepee is keeping watch.